Ladies and gentlemen, there's a real simple reason why I'm with you. There's an old expression in my neighborhood. You go home with them that brung you to the dance, and y'all brung me to the dance. I want you to know that. Mr. President and Bill, it's good to see my region represented here. My first election to the United States Senate was in 1972. I was a 29-year-old kid running against a guy who had an 82% favorable rating and had been endorsed by Labor the previous time out against a very conservative Democrat who he beat. And he was a two-term governor, two-term senator, five-term congressman, and he was 63 years old, and no one thought we could win. And there was a big old steelworker named Emory Woodard, and Emory was about as big as a house and as committed. And there used to be a guy, some of you may remember, it's a few of you, a guy named Huey Carcella who worked for IWA. Huey was the guy who ran the Philadelphia region, which was my region. And Emory was not about to take no for an answer. Emory decided in May that y'all were going to endorse me. Now, no one endorsed me except my mother at that time. This is God's true story. And we went up to see Huey, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times. And finally, old Emory pounded his hand on Huey's desk and said, "Huey, this is our man, and we need him." And Huey finally relented, and he said, "Now I want to speak to IWA." He didn't all just have an ordinary steel worker representing Delaware just do that. And we had that meeting, and you all were the first union to endorse me. You were the first anybody to endorse me. And I'm not being solicitous when I say it changed my life. It literally changed my life. Because when the steelworkers in 1972 stood up for the kid from Claymont, everything changed. Auto workers then endorsed me. Then the trades endorsed me. And I won by a landslide of just about 3,000 votes. So if you're wondering, you're to blame for me being in the Senate for the last 34 years. And I want to thank you for it. And you know, folks, I come here today not only to thank you, but to try once again to earn your support. I can't guarantee you much, but I can guarantee you one thing. With or without your endorsement, if I'm elected President of the United States, the steelworkers will have the best friend as president they have ever had in the history of this country in the United States presidency. I guarantee you that. Folks, the American people, I think, were no different than steelworkers, no different than any of you in this room. I think they're looking for somebody who has the grit that they can trust, who has been through some tough times, who can be their next president, someone with a breadth and depth of knowledge of national security issues, and somebody who understands just how much pressure the middle class has been under the last couple decades, but particularly the last 6 years. Every year, there's a presidential race, there's a slightly different job description the American people are have us fill out. This year, in my view, the job description the American people want met is very straightforward and clear. It has 2 lines on it. It says they're looking for someone to restore America's place in the world, and they're looking for someone to reinvigorate the middle class, stop the decline, turn it around. And ladies and gentlemen, in order to restore our place in the world, there's a great big old boulder sitting in the middle of the road right now. It's the war in Iraq. Until we end that war in Iraq, until we deal with that issue, we will not be able to regain the credibility we need to lead the world on so many other issues that affect our national interest. And until we deal with that war, we're not going to have the flexibility to deal with the issues and opportunities we face at home. This president took us to war unnecessarily, without letting the weapons inspectors do their job, without enough troops, without the right equipment for the troops he sent, without the right care for the troops we brought home that were injured, and without a plan, without any plan. Ladies and gentlemen, The fact of the matter is, we can measure this failure in the blood and treasure we have squandered. 3,500 and, as of last night, 68 dead. 25,000 wounded. More amputees per capita than any war since the Civil War. And more head trauma injuries that will require care for the next 20 years or more, costing billions of dollars than all the head trauma injuries in World War II. And at a cost so far, and the clock is still running, of a commitment of $1.4 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, this war must end. This war must end. But while leaving Iraq is necessary, it is not a plan. In Washington, and I have a bad habit of being told these days, as you read about me, of Biden being blunt, Biden being somewhat too blunt. Well, the fact of the matter is, in Washington, there's a false debate going on that centers on two false choices. One hand, you got the administration arguing, continue this failed course. And I got in trouble for saying this a year and a half ago, but I believe it more today than I did then. The only policy this administration has is not how to fix it, but how to hand it off to the next president. They have no plan. And a lot of my colleagues who are running for president, and some who aren't, in both political parties, they think that the other option is leave and hope for the best. Well, neither of these false choices answers the critical question, then what? After you surge troops, then what? After you begin to cut troops, then what? After you do whatever suggested, then what? What interests are left for America? We need a plan, not only how to get out, but for what we leave behind, so we don't trade a dictator for chaos. I not only don't want my son, who's a captain in the United States Army, heading to Iraq next year, as he's likely to do. Depending on how we bring my son home, if he goes, and others, will determine whether or not I have to send my grandson in 15 years from now. So, ladies and gentlemen, how we get out matters. And of all the candidates in both political parties, I literally, not figuratively, the only one who was offered a concrete plan. Everybody says we need a political solution, but no one has offered any political solution. Ladies and gentlemen, there's three pieces what we have to do, and I'm absolutely certain of it. And I've been saying this since before the war began. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to draw down our troops, get them out of the middle of this civil war, and set an end date for when we're going to bring them home. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we're just feeding them into a meat grinder now, putting them into a city of 6.3 million people, knocking on doors, not knowing whose side they're on, not knowing whether they're going to get shot by a Sunni or a Shia or a Kurd. We should change the mission. That's exactly what the Biden and Levin amendment that the president vetoed a couple weeks ago said. It said, Mr. President, change the mission. You're only allowed to keep our troops there to train an Iraqi army, deny al-Qaeda occupation of territory, and protect our diplomats in the green zone. But get out of the civil war. And in the meantime, we have to change and walk away from this absolutely flawed strategic notion. Both my colleagues on my side and the president has, and they approach it from different reasons.